Hey church, so grateful to be coming to you today from St. John's Chapel, the first dedicated worship space here on our campus, over 100 years old, adjacent this beautiful window, the newest window in the chapel, which memorializes our beloved Frank Johnson. I'm coming to you today to give you a little bit of a state of the parish before our annual meeting. I'd just like to tell you that 2023 was a wonderful year for us at St. John's. We have lots to be grateful for, especially from the seat that I sit in. I'm grateful to you. I want to say thank you to each of you for the gifts and the time and the energy, the creativity, the mind and the heart that you have brought to St. John's over the course of the past year. We have had both a wonderful and a long year. There's lots for us to celebrate, a few things for us to get our minds and hearts around so we might learn from where we have fallen short or failed or struggled. And then many opportunities ahead for the year in 2024. I can say just outright, we've had a great year. We have a wonderful parish. We are well led by staff and vestry, by a number of very strong lay leaders who have a long timeline of serving our church, of serving our community in loving mission and caring for one another. I mean to tell you that so you have a sense that our church is well positioned for the present future at a time when churches are re-envisioning how ministry and mission is done. St. John sits in a very comfortable place where we can be creative and innovative while also honoring and serving the over 100-year traditions that we have here in the parish, some of which began in this very chapel. So a bit about 2023. If we were to look at what dominated the headlines of St. John's Episcopal Church over the course of that year, most certainly it would be the Legacy of Love campaign that we've been engaging for a little bit more than a year in an effort to rebuild our Browse and Buy building so that it might host a larger, higher functioning Browse and Buy, a Jackson cupboard that lovingly serves and protects the dignity of the clients of the Jackson cupboard and those who need support when it comes to food resource in our community. An expanded space in the basement for our brothers and sisters who are in recovery, in my mind, the highest functioning lowercase c church in our valley and across the United States, a constituency of people who tend to one another and care for one another's practical and emotional needs in a wonderful and transformative way, along with two much needed units of housing. It's been an ambitious plan that it's been on our plate for more than a decade. How might we engage a project like this? And what we've witnessed during the 2023 year is this move from a quiet phase of the campaign, which began in 2022, to the public phase of the campaign, which began in August of 2023 with a wonderful Sunday morning celebration where we all came together under the Word, shoulder to shoulder, and around the table, feasting and celebrating this loving missional project that we have. At the time of the filming of this video, I'm so pleased to be able to tell you that we have experienced great success in both the quiet phase and the public phase of our campaigns. So far, we've raised over $12 million toward an $18 million goal. So we're 2/3 of the way there, knowing that our next third is a big lift for our congregation, but we have a wonderful opportunity over the course of this particular 2024 year to bring that campaign to a close, to focus on the construction and finalization of design plans for our buildings so that we might implement this new wonderful tool, bring it into our community, and generate even more love than we already do in our current mission with Browse and Buy. There are so many people to thank that I can't list their names in a video that I hope is shortish for you. But dozens of people have been volunteering in the early phases and the quiet phase and continue to volunteer in support of this campaign. And it's our hope to be able to meet with every family and to be able to pitch this beautiful plan that we've come up with, and then to invite participation across our parish in the campaign itself. Thank you for those of you who have already been there in our campaign and spent time with the leadership of our church to learn about the big dreams that we have. And thank you in advance to those of you who will gather together with volunteers on our campaign and meet with them and learn of that dream in this particular 2024 year. Outside the boundaries of the campaign, I'm pleased to be able to tell you that our normal operations have not been interrupted by this big project for the most part. In areas of administration and formation and mission, we have continued what we have always done, and in fact, in most of those areas, expanded. In mission this past year, we saw the creation of a beautiful relationship between Amos Health and Hope, a nonprofit health ministry from Nicaragua. We've sent a team down to spend time learning about the work that they do. And that group came back energized, hoping that we would have a more formal relationship with Amos, which we have created, that we might in the future send more teams down to support those living in the rural areas who need access to more even simple healthcare instruction and logistics. So it's a wonderful addition to the mission work that we've done. Adult formation has carried on as it always has at St. John's, but also expanded over the course of a few different courses offered on Sunday mornings. This year we attracted 407 more people in adult formation than we did in the prior year. Looking at things like, if I could only tell you one thing, getting close to one another and revealing areas where we experience brokenness in our lives, and also having a wonderful opportunity to come back together and dream about what wholeness or whole lives look like under the banner of the gospel of Jesus, which we all know is love. Oftentimes on Sunday mornings, I look to my left and I wonder, where did all these people come from sitting in our choir? Our musical offerings and our choir membership have grown over the course of the year under Ron's excellent leadership, and I would expect to see that continue to grow in 2024. And Browse and Buy, our mission here on the south end of our campus, has had the strongest year in its history, earning an income of just shy of $990,000. One of the things I like to say about Browse when people ask me, what's this like? Why do you have this? Why does your church do this? I like to say Browse turns discard into money and money into love. As each of us brings our secondhand clothing and housewares through the back door of Browse, deftly sorted by a dedicated staff, ending up on the sales floor of our thrift shop. We've had, I can't remember, it's something like 55,000 transactions at the Browse registers on an average of like $17 of transaction. That money then is returned to the budget of the church, where we're able to turn it back out into the community in wonderful, caring, and supportive ways through nurture when folks need help, elderly folks or disabled folks with their property tax, nonprofits who need just a little extra partnership in our community from partners like St. John's to continue to develop and grow their work, to the expansion of the mission and ministry that we already do through the Coat Drive or the Period Project Drive. A lot happens through Browse. Of course, that's why we continue to have a desire to make that tool, that one tool in our toolbox, even more effective for the next 5 decades ahead of us. 2023 also saw a number of newish or new initiatives here at St. John's. Gathering Women on Tuesday night continues to be a ministry that is flourishing under Mary Erickson's guidance. Dozens of women coming together both in creative and innovative worship, and then around round tables sharing a meal and sharing pastoral and relational connection across those tables, one with another, on Tuesday evenings. We also witnessed our second annual Wonder Fest, an opportunity where we brought 12 well-renowned poets to the Jackson community to share their art in partnership with our own Red Door series that we've developed here over the course of the last year. Sometimes people scratch their heads a little bit and say like, that's interesting, Jimmy. Poetry, why poetry? What we found is that during times when the culture itself is confusing, perhaps experiencing a measure of crisis or reorientation as we find ourselves in these past few years, from pandemic to political upset to living more in the extremes, humanity begins to lean toward art like poetry in order to help us understand the chaos that we might be facing in our practical lives. A wonderful tool to help us find expression and spiritual expression in times of upheaval and upset. We also had another wonderful artistic opportunity in the hosting of our first annual Native American Indigenous Art Market. It was a wonderful weekend, a bit disrupted by some inclement weather, but here we are in Wyoming, and we found a way through, as we always do in Wyoming. But we had over 18 artists come to our church campus and offer their creativity and their perspective, both for our viewing and for our purchase. It was a super opportunity for our church to host our Native American siblings, our brothers and sisters from across the country who demonstrated their art for us in beautiful ways, from paintings to dance to sculpture to the beautiful songs of Christian Wallowing Bull. It was a wonderful opportunity that we hope and expect to recreate here in 2024. Also, another new initiative that we began to signal in 2022 that became embodied in 2023 is our campfire experience, led, of course, by the Reverend Dr. Travis Helms. We've created an opportunity over at the Verge Saloon, once a month on Sunday evenings to host interesting and eccentric and creative and athletic personalities who come to us talking about how they exercise their own crafts or sport, having conversation about how that influences our own spirituality or their spiritual practice, and then giving the room itself, which is for the most part almost always packed with near 100 fresh faces, giving conversation across tables while enjoying a beverage or a cheeseburger from Billy Burger. I am absolutely sure that each of these new initiatives will continue to grow and flourish in 2024 as we engage them more deliberately and as we seek to be even more creative and more innovative in those areas. I don't think we would do a good job of looking backwards across the year if we didn't talk a bit about areas of struggle, areas of failure. It's my belief that our staff and our lay leadership ought to be regularly struggling and failing so we might learn a bit more about how we can be more effective, more dynamic leaders when it comes to the spread of love and care, both across our parish and across our communities. There are two areas in particular where I believe we've struggled a bit over the course of the prior year, 2023. The first, I would say, is pastoral care. And that, I would say, is like, how do we as clergy and how do we as parishioners sitting shoulder to shoulder in the pews week in and week out deliver meaningful pastoral care one to another, especially in times when we're meeting struggle or crisis or illness. I expect over the course of 2024 to spend a good amount of my time thinking deliberately about how we might expand and continue to develop and even repair some of the systems that we have in pastoral care over the course of the 2024 year. I think another area where we've struggled has also been in the area of youth and family ministry. Like, how do we continue in a robust and flourishing way to offer opportunities for the youngest members of our congregation and for their families at large? This is an area in church work where there's a lot of innovation and creativity, also a lot of destruction and failure that's happening across the denomination and across the church as we experience some historical transformation. So I don't worry too much about it in the long run, but I want to make sure that if you are a child or a young adult, or if you are a mom or a dad coming to our congregation, that we're doing everything we can do to support you in your life as a member of St. John's Episcopal Church, in your life as a member of the community of Jackson Hole, and in your life around your own living room or your own fireplace at home. It wouldn't be right for me to talk about areas of struggle without talking about areas of strength as well. 2023 has been a strong year for us. We continue to have excellent leadership across the board. I'm not talking about me. I'm talking about the colleagues that I have such a great privilege to serve alongside. I'm talking about you, those of you who populate the pews of our church week in and week out, who come together with creative ideas about how we might lovingly serve the community of Jackson and provide the same, if not greater, measure of care and support to the people of St. John's. We have great leadership. We have great leadership that's standing upon the foundation of a strong history of St. John's Episcopal Church being oriented to the community and oriented in the direction of love and care and nurture. Our church is also, and almost always has been, missionally focused. How do we deliver the goodness and the love and the care that we've received to God, that we've received from God, to people who otherwise wouldn't have opportunity to receive it or feel it or know it? I can also tell you that you generously support, through your financial gifts, our congregation and the work that we embody in both our mission and ministry. We've had another wonderfully strong finish of our year, being just over $75,000 in the black on our budget. This is a tremendous accomplishment in a year where we have raised record numbers of dollars, both in support of our church and in support of this capital project that we have before us. Rest assured, we are a strong church, standing on a strong history, shoulder to shoulder, arm in arm, with strong leadership. So what might you expect in 2024? That's a great question, and I'll give you a little inkling about where my mind and heart has been. There are two particular chapters in the Gospel of Matthew that sort of punch above their weight. That's the 5th chapter and the 25th chapter. The 5th chapter is that familiar Sermon of the Mount, or those Beatitudes, where Jesus is casting a vision for what the kingdom of heaven might look like at hand, today, on the ground. It's mystical and cosmic and paradoxical. And then 20 chapters later, we get a whole bunch of stories compacted into a single chapter that indicate about what that work, that Matthew chapter 5 work, might look like logistically. And in that 25th chapter of Matthew, Jesus tells this story that we know as the parable of talents. He says a landowner comes to 3 of his servants and informs them that he intends to be away for a period of time. And he instructs these 3 servants to care and give nurture to the homestead. And in that wonderful story, he symbolically hands the 3 a number of talents. It says, according to each's ability. To one servant, he gives 5 talents. To one servant, he gives 3 talents. To another servant, he gives 1 talent. The servant who receives the 5 talents immediately goes out into the community and puts them into loving work. Sometime later, he wakes up to the reality where those 5 talents have turned to 10. That second servant who receives the 3 talents has a similar experience as the first. He goes out into the community and puts the resources of the landowner to work in a loving and nurturing way in the community, and after a period of time discovers that those 3 talents have become 6. And then that final servant, in somewhat of a comedic way, in a moment of panic, takes his 1 talent digs a hole, buries it into the ground, and sees that that single talent that the landowner gives him is protected from any sort of loss. When the landowner returns and asks the three servants how they've worked out the care and nurture of the resource that he handed over to them in their absence, the first pipes up and says, "You gave me 5 talents. I put it to work in the community and it turned 10. And he gets that congratulatory response of, "Well done, good and faithful servant. You will be in charge of much more than just 5 talents. Then there's a repeat in the second servant, when he returns not just the 3 talents, but the other 3 that he's made. Well done, good and faithful servant. And then wonderfully and somewhat comedically, when that third shows up with a single talent, the landowner's like, no, you weren't meant to bury it into the ground. You were meant to put what I have given you to work in the community. Oh, I'm going to take your 1 talent away and send you away dejected and put the resource in the hands of those who are energized by the work that I embolden them to do in my absence." I've been tooling around with that parable, thinking what it's like, reflecting on the great privilege that we have of being a 5-talent church, wondering what it would look like over the course of the year of 2024 to examine that with intentionality and discipline, to alongside the story, the parable that Jesus delivers us, to create a real strategy where we might look forward through the next decade and imagine creatively what it might be like if Jesus were to return to the campus of St. John's Episcopal Church in Jackson Hole, Wyoming, in 10 years and ask us about the metaphorical 5 talents that he left us and what we might return to him in such a beautiful way so that we might be prepared to inherit the full measure of love and entrusted partnership that he has for generations to come, become expected of the people of St. John's Episcopal work. That's a somewhat priestly way of telling you that I think we'll engage in a strategic process with leadership of this church and smaller groups to think and dream and pray together about what it might look like for us to take our metaphorical 5 talents and over the course of the next 10 years, turn those 5 into 10 so that at a wonderful opportunity, we might give that resource back over to God and inherit a new mission and a new ministry that surely the future will deliver us in a magnificent, in a practical, in a mystical, and in most certainly a loving way. Church, thank you for taking time to listen to these thoughts about our year past and these dreams about our year to come. I continue to reflect day in and day out about what a great privilege it is to serve you, to serve as your rector, to serve as a leader within this strong church and this strong community. It is our great privilege to nurture the ministry and mission that we have before us and the new ideas that haven't quite reached our threshold, but ones that we're praying about and dreaming about. And I can't wait to join you in the present future to continue and to expand the work that we're doing. See you around town.